An apocalyptic landscape, dark and foul-smelling. A dense black cloud that oppresses and suffocates you. No ray of sunlight filters through, and then there's the stench. A chemical, toxic stench that assaults your throat as soon as you enter the zone. We're in Qayyarah, in the north of Iraq, 60 kilometers south of Mosul. The zone was only liberated from Daesh rule in August 2016. That is, 10 months before my arrival. Before leaving the territory, the Islamic State set fire to the oil wells. Oil takes up all the space here. This oil that drew Daesh here. This oil that has always poisoned the lives of the Iraqi people. First Saddam Hussein, then Al-Qaeda, and now Daesh. A curse that seems to be eternal. It's the press photographer Edouard Elias who first told me about the Qayyarah oil wells. He showed me photos that he'd taken on site, showing the struggle of men dwarfed by this blazing adversary. Incredible, striking images, apocalyptic. His work reminded me of the photos that had made world headlines in 1992. At the end of the First Gulf War, before pulling out, the Iraqi army had blown up Kuwait's oil fields. But this time, these fires are the work of an enemy on the inside, Daesh.
Here we're in a tunnel in the Qayyarah region that Daesh dug near the river. They build tunnels and hide out inside them to avoid being spotted by the American and Iraqi planes. As you can see, it's like a network of streets in here. They come in and go out through this opening here.
Youssef belongs to the local Shiite militias that are part of the armed coalition fighting the Islamists. In the Mosul and Qayyarah regions, where the population is largely Sunni, these militias are both feared and respected. Accused of committing acts of brutality, they also command admiration for the crucial role they played in liberating the region.
It's Daesh who set fire to the wells to hide their movements. The sky's blackened by the smoke, so the planes can't see them when they're fighting. These fires are harmful to everyone, to the old people, to the water, to the children, to the animals. The animals are dying, the people are suffocating. We have to wear masks to be able to breathe. And it's been like this for 10 months now.
25 oil wells have been set ablaze around Qayyarah. After the war in Kuwait, American firefighting experts were sent out to put out the 700 burning wells set ablaze by Saddam Hussein. But for Qayyarah, there's no foreign aid. All the firefighters are Iraqi. I meet some of the firefighters, men who've come out here from Kirkuk and more particularly from the capital, Baghdad, located several hundred kilometers away. Their living quarters are a rudimentary camp set up not far from the oil field zone. Their day begins with some warm-up exercises.
صعد يلا انسحب انسحب وازنا يلا هرول على السيارة هرول يلا السيارة يلا شباب.
Many of these young men aren't professionals but became firefighters out of necessity. Hushaim, for example, who's from Baghdad, is a lawyer.
In my country, there was no job. It's little job. When I found this job, I'm lucky.
I'm 24 years old, and I've been a firefighter for 2 years now. It's not what I'm trained for, but there are very few work possibilities in Iraq, and all in all, I like this work. We come here and prepare the equipment and tanks to put out the fire. Each man has his role, whether he's a firefighter or a driver, and we put out the fire. This crude oil is highly flammable. The fires are difficult to reach because water has no effect on them. It's used mainly to cool down the bulldozers so that they can dig deeper down to uncover the pipelines containing the crude oil, which we then pump with water.
Burning oil gives off an intolerable heat, 1,800 degrees Celsius at the flame center, 400 around the well. In Kuwait, the firefighters were equipped with special protective clothing, and bulldozers cocooned in asbestos. They put out most of the fires with the use of dynamite and by pumping a special mud into the wells. There's none of that here. The only advantage the Iraqi firefighters have is the proximity of the Tigris River, which provides unlimited quantities of water with which to cool down the zone.
Oil is both a blessing and a curse, good and evil at the same time. It's good because it gives us a livelihood, and evil because it can become a weapon that threatens everyone.
So is oil a blessing or a curse for the country? The black gold has played a major role in the birth of modern Iraq. It's determined the boundary delimitations, participated in the country's development, and had repercussions on the social and political life. 9/10 of Iraq's national wealth comes from oil. Control of the oil wells and pipelines is thus an all-important concern, both economically and politically. The world's 5th leading oil producer, Iraq has considerable potential and is capable of producing as many barrels per day as Saudi Arabia. A valuable resource that arouses envy and has plunged the country into chaos.
Because of the present insecurity in the country, people can no longer go where they want to because they're afraid. That's why we get out of the country whenever we can to have a few moments of peace and relaxation. We hope things will get better, but the country is divided between different faiths and a multitude of political parties, so it's difficult to restore security. But we keep our hopes up that one day things will get better. 10 years ago, I just wanted to obtain my diploma, live in peace, and get married, in the hope that the situation here would become more stable. But that wasn't the case. And everything's changed now.
Like so many other young Iraqis, Hushaim dreams of a better life. But what chance does he have in a country where there's no work, where the terrorist threat is permanent, and whose future remains uncertain? Since 2005, there's been an ongoing power struggle for control of the crude oil production between Baghdad and the KRG, the Kurdistan Regional Government, which claims the right to export crude oil without interference from the central government. Dorothée Schmidt from IFRI, the French Institute of International Relations, is a specialist in European policies in the Mediterranean and Middle East.
In theory, the oil resources are Iraqi national resources and should therefore be managed by the Iraqi national government, which then redistributes the generated revenues. However, there was a time when the Kurds decided to produce and export their own oil themselves, without first coming to an agreement with Baghdad. This oil question soured relations between Baghdad and Erbil in 2014, when the vast offensive launched by Daesh against Iraq enabled the Kurds to occupy the city of Kirkuk, a city which represents a considerable part of Iraq's hydrocarbon resources, 40% if I recall. So the concern then was whether the Kurds were going to exploit Kirkuk's oil resources for their own profit, which they began to do, in fact, quite rapidly.
In 2014, when the Islamic State attacked the Nineveh Plains region, the border area between Arab and Kurd territory, a new chapter opened in the Middle East oil war, which Kurdistan is going to use to its advantage.
The Daesh offensive in 2014 further reinforced Iraqi Kurdistan's position in terms of security. The Peshmerga military forces were also mobilized to stop Daesh's advance in the north of Iraq, and they notably managed to regain position in Kirkuk, the famous city that was part of the disputed territories. And we still don't know today what the actual borders between Iraq's Kurd and Arab regions are going to be.
The rivalries between Sunnis and Shiites have led to sectarianism and fanaticism. Each one wants to have ascendancy over the others. They'll stop at nothing to get what they want, to be able to do what they want and to have total control.
Our conversation is suddenly interrupted.
Come down right now. We've got work to do. Come and work now.
1 minute.
Hushaim, an embarrassed smile on his face, has just been disciplined by his boss. I think I've hit a nerve here, entered a gray zone. The firefighters let me film, but no one wants to talk to me. I don't understand why. I obtained the necessary authorization to film from the Department of Energy. The atmosphere has suddenly changed. Out in the field of operations, I've met with stern faces. My presence is just barely tolerated. The day ends without my having been able to question anyone. I'm here, reduced to filming voiceless people, feeling powerless against this inexplicable silence. The following day, I decide to go back to the oil well zone and approach some other people who are working here alongside the firefighters. Oil police units are in charge of securing the zone, a sign that Iraq is in the process of reorganizing itself and preparing its reconstruction.
Daesh took over all the oil wells here. They occupied the zone for 2 years. They took the oil and organized a trafficking operation. Each day we asked the residents how much oil, how many trucks passed by here. They replied that Daesh was trafficking a total of 1,500 oil trucks per day. 1,500 trucks left the country each day. After having reaped a big profit from this oil, and when they realized they couldn't get anything more from it, Daesh blew up the oil wells. A lot of countries have oil. Most of the Gulf countries have oil. Libya has a lot of it, but the situation's complicated there. For us, since the Americans came, it's been chaos here. We already had this oil, but we had just one leader then. Before the occupation, our situation was completely different. Everything changed when the Americans came. The problem isn't the oil. The Gulf countries have reached an agreement with their people. They redistribute the oil revenues to their people, and the whole country benefits from this oil wealth. But here, the people don't have any rights. What do we get from all this oil? A single bag of flour. A single bag, that's all I have.
The shepherds who bring their sheep to graze just a stone's throw away from these burning wells are particularly exposed to the risk of stepping on a landmine. In this remote village, everything is desolation and destruction since Daesh came here. The village leader invites me to drink tea with the men of the village. He seems glad of the opportunity to express himself.
This village was founded in 1942. We get our livelihood from farming and animals, cattle and sheep raising. In our village now, all the present population is from the same clan, but there used to be several clans living here. Around 12 clans up until 1950 or 1960. In 1970, there were no utilities in this village. There was no water, no electricity, no roads. So the people moved away to the towns to have schools and hospitals. We stayed. When Daesh came, they bombed some of the village houses. They blew up 6 or 7 houses of people who worked in the army. They blew them up. 3 months before the liberation of Qayyarah, they arrested 2 or 3 people here and took them away with them.
The fighting has left the village in ruins, while the fumes from the burning wells continue to contaminate the entire region. For its inhabitants, the situation is bleak.
Our country has great riches. There's oil, there's sulfur, there's gas, but we don't have any leaders who are in charge of things. The leaders have no sense of responsibility, management or organization. They have no concern for the people's well-being, and it's always been like that. They're all the same. The politicians have no thought for us.
Since 2014, with its 4 million barrels per day, Iraqi oil production has reached record levels. A population that feels abandoned, forced into silence, weapons everywhere. The picture becomes cloudier with each day I spent in Qayyarah. The situation with the firefighters is still blocked. There's no possibility to interview anyone, even less to spend time with any of them outside working hours.
We're proud to belong to this army because we're the only ones to have rid most of the country of Daesh's presence. Some have tried to set the Iraqi people against its army, whereas it participates fully in this struggle that benefits everyone.
Ali Amer, a member of the regular army, comes from Baghdad. His unit rotates every 15 days between the Mosul region and the Iraqi capital. Today, Qayyarah serves as a rear base for the Iraqi and American armed forces.
Daesh have planted landmines in a circle around the oil wells. Any vehicles approaching them get blown up. They've even found landmines by the roadside. If an ambulance comes to help the victims of a first explosion, it blows up in its turn. Luckily, the bomb disposal experts are very efficient. They've defused most of the explosives.
The sabotage operations committed by Daesh are cowardly and criminal acts. These explosives are planted randomly in the plains, the valley, and around the roads. We continue to oversee the efforts of the engineers and bomb disposal experts to clear the region of these explosives. We've already removed explosives in many places, and we continue to do so.
Ahmed is the chief of the Energy Police, a new independent body outside the regular army whose mission is to secure the zones deserted by Daesh. They are recognizable by their blue fatigues. They patrol the region and work alongside the bomb disposal experts mandated by the Department of Energy to defuse the explosives, in particular in the zones where the firefighters are working.
We began our work in September 2016, just after the liberation of the Qayyarah region. Units were set up here to protect the oil and the oil companies. These oil companies own the refineries, the oil fields, and the wells.
The risks of being blown up by a landmine are huge, and tragic accidents are frequent. I was told that a few days ago, a bulldozer blew up not far from the place where I'm filming.
Wait! We have better access over there.
The bomb disposal experts have limited means at their disposal. They advance blindly amid the acrid fumes, equipped with just simple shovels to detect metal, with no protection whatsoever. No fire-safe clothing, no masks, despite the unbreathable atmosphere. In the front line, the firefighters and bomb disposal experts are obviously the most exposed. But these landmines also pose a daily deadly threat to the civilian population.
People need to know that in these regions, the inhabitants are also the victims of terrorism. It's neither these people nor these regions that create or support terrorism. They suffer from it. Oil always generates problems. Wealth arouses envy. That's the everyday reality of the Iraqi people who suffer because of oil. They haven't gained any benefit from it, and it has only brought them destruction and greed and Daesh.
Daesh has left behind a traumatized population. 250 people are thought to have been executed by the IS, mainly men. For these families deprived of a father or a brother to provide for them, the situation is critical. They feel completely abandoned by the government. There's no help from the state. Instead, it's private donors who come to their assistance. Today, it's a time for celebration. This association is distributing not food supplies, but children's toys. The main donor, Mr. Mansour Marid, an Iraqi businessman who lives in Jordan, has come out here under heavy escort.
Present here today, we have a group of young people from Qayyarah and some volunteer workers. We've gathered together families of martyrs, local government officials, and officials from the oil ministry to announce the creation of an association to help victims of terrorism in South Mosul. We are all well aware that our country has gone through some very difficult times since 2004 due to divisions created by the fanatics. It's the fault of a few political parties who take advantage of this division. And our responsibility during this unification phase is to offer help and assistance to the victims' families.
Several thousand civilians who fled the regions taken over by the Islamic State live in refugee camps set up outside the city. These camps are funded by the United Nations, which provides material assistance to these populations who have lost everything and don't know when they will be able to return to their homes. These traumatized civilians fear that the nightmare will begin again, that Daesh will come back to spread terror and destruction once more. Here, the city is in ruins, and a dense black cloud of toxic fumes fills the sky, causing a major health concern. Qayyarah's hospital has been partially destroyed and is no longer operational.
We don't have this medicine. Do you have enough milk to give him?
He's a bit better, but he's been like this since this morning.
Let me take a look. He doesn't need to take any medicine, but as I told you, we'll need to do a checkup in a week's time.
This inherited material takes time to be healed. When the smoke stopped, we have to wait weeks or months to solve such problem. But as I mentioned, that the winter and the viral causes cold illnesses, pneumonia, other causes of chest problems was associated with this smoke. When it's summer, we can differentiate that this problem is mainly due to smoke or viral illnesses or bacterial illnesses that cause chest infection.
Do you think he needs to be put on a drip?
Pardon?
A drip. Does he need a drip?
Is he vomiting?
He's vomited 4 or 5 times.
Adults can deal with the problem more better, and most of them don't want to get to their primary health care because they even take traditional treatment or go to a special doctor. But the kids, most of them come to their primary health care. I can't tell you the correct number, but I guess that they are 150 to 200. I'm from Mosul, migrating to Kirkuk at the end of 2014, and stayed there. But after Qayyarah was free now, and they want healthcare here more, I came to this city to give medical support to the patients.
In Qayyarah, it's not only lungs that are damaged. The traumatisms caused by the Daesh occupation have also left their mark. In this community clinic, women volunteers have chosen to come here to help their compatriots by providing them with psychological support. They agree to speak to me, but with their faces covered, because their families are still blocked in Mosul and they fear reprisals from Daesh.
We give psychological support. We receive a lot of women here who have problems. Since some of the burning oil wells have been put out, the situation has improved. But the psychological problems remain because Daesh's presence has traumatized the civil population. We were still students when Daesh arrived. When they were here, we stayed inside the house. If we got sick, we didn't want to come here because of the restrictions imposed by Daesh. They forced us to wear the niqab and to cover our eyes. In the center, there were always problems between Daesh and the women because they were very strict. The people adapted to this situation because they had no choice. But a lot of women now have psychological problems because of what they went through during the Daesh occupation. The loss of a son, a brother, a husband. Some of them saw their homes blown up or witnessed bombings close by them. All this gave rise to psychological disorders in just about everybody. The children witnessed things that even adults couldn't bear to see, but they didn't have a choice. They were forced to witness these scenes that were taking place all around them. Where else could they look? We tried to make them forget what they saw, to re-educate them, to retrain them, so that they forget what they saw with Daesh, so that all these horrors don't stay engraved in their young minds, imprinted in their memory forever. The traumatism is still very recent, and it's going to have repercussions on future generations.
Even if peace were gradually restored, how can one imagine the situation ever getting back to normal? One need only look at the faces of these boys, black from the oil fumes that are devastating the entire region.
Are there problems here?
Yes,
What kind?
the smoke. The other problem is Daesh. We want them to leave Iraq.
Daesh beheaded them in that stadium there.
Beheaded who?
They beheaded people.
Innocent people.
Innocent people. The ones they call the infidels, the army.
Were you scared of them?
Yes, we were scared of them.
There was a man who Daesh suspected of being an army informer. Daesh tied this informer up, blindfolded him, and beat him to death with concrete blocks. I want things to be as they were before. I want everyone to come back. My cousins who are outside of Qayyarah. I want everything. I want our fathers to go back to their jobs. My brothers too. One of them is in the police force, the other one in the army.
And you, what's your dream?
Me?
Yes.
I want Qayyarah to be better than before.
Qayyarah has been back for a long time.
Better than before.
Yes.
We don't want to think about Daesh anymore. We want them to go away, to leave Iraq. They've ruined us.
Freedom, for me, is getting back to how we were, without Daesh, without any of this. It's for things to be as before Daesh came.
The dense smoke that has continued to fill the sky for almost a year now is like a permanent reminder of Daesh's presence in the region. I decide to go back to the firefighting zone. The smell of oil is strong, but I also smell trouble. The atmosphere is more and more poisonous. I make another attempt to approach the firefighters, but I still have this very uncomfortable feeling of being persona non grata here. I don't speak Arabic, which is probably a good thing.
What is she doing here? Does she want to turn me into a movie star or what?
Why are such meager means available to put out these fires? Why would the oil company in charge of operating these wells allow their reserves to go up in smoke like this? In order to protect them from the appetites of the neighboring Kurds? I'm beginning to wonder. The firefighters who are going on leave give free rein to their joy. Here, the crews are replaced every week. I understand their relief at being able to leave this inferno, even temporarily. Aside from this demonstration of joy, everyone watches his step. The big boss has just made his appearance. It's Mr. Safa, second in charge of the oil company that operates the oil wells, the North Oil Company. He looks like he's just out for a walk in the park, but with a heavy escort. It's impossible to get close to him to ask him some burning questions. Noticing my disappointment, one of the firefighters takes me to one side. I keep my camera on.
Explain to her that the TV channels are politicized and that there are some channels that support Daesh indirectly and others that fight against Daesh. It's a question of media. Maybe the company wants to keep things secret. That's why they forbid us to speak. My boss told me that I wasn't authorized to speak to you, and that if I did, I'd be in trouble.
The boss, Mohammed, doesn't want us to speak. Neither does his superior, Mr. Saad, who's formally forbidden us to speak.
Since the arrival of Daesh, interviews have been forbidden for nearly 3 years. It's a political thing. Maybe they were told that they don't want her to come and film here, I don't know. I don't question her or her TV channel, but maybe this channel is going to present the subject in a biased manner. Do you understand me?
Mr. Safa isn't going to accept this. If we speak without his permission, we're going to suffer the consequences, no?
Listen, Mr. Safa is just a pretext. The minister lays everything on Mr. Safa so that it's impossible to contact him. So it's a dead-end situation. Mr. Safa is just an excuse.
Under heavy guard, Mr. Safa leaves without having even glanced in my direction. One person at least will finally speak to me in the open. His name's Tarek, and he works for the North Oil Company, but lives in the region, which explains his anger and the fact that he disregards the instructions of his superiors.
The wells have been damaged, but the people in charge of the wells don't want to put out the fires. They're trying to gain time because it brings in a lot of money. The employees benefit from it. They don't need to put out the fires. Their families are in Erbil, Baghdad, or Kirkuk. They don't care. Today it's been 8 months since Qayyarah was liberated, and until now no serious attempts have been made to put out the wells. If the fires are put out, what will they do then? These jobs bring in a lot of money and benefits for them. So they think, why put out the fires? I benefit from this. It's not my concern. I have no family here, no children. I'm not from here. So I just do my job without thinking about it. That's where the problem lies. Financial corruption rules here. That's why they don't want to answer any questions. That way no one knows what's going on.
If they're lucky, they can earn between 2 to 10 times the average Iraqi salary, which would explain in part why the firefighters aren't in a hurry to finish their mission here, despite the risks. Human beings aren't the only ones to suffer from this atmospheric pollution.
These sheep have become black because of the wells that Daesh set on fire. They set fire to all the wells. The environment is polluted everywhere. Look at these clouds of smoke. They're everywhere. Black smoke everywhere. The wind's polluted, the water's polluted, everything's polluted. They set fire to 25 oil wells. They've killed us with this smoke. It's still active even now. How is the air ever going to become pure again? Everything's black. We're black. Our state, our situation. Our sheep are tired. We're tired. All this is because of the toxic gases. All this is gas. All this gives us cancer and other sicknesses. In the morning, we wash ourselves, we're clean, and then later we become black. Our hands, our clothes, our mattresses become black. Everything becomes black. It's because of the smoke. The environment's polluted. The companies, the engineers, do nothing to put the fires out quickly. You're Kurd. You, Jubur. That one's Yazidi. The other one's Saibi. Each one's fighting to win the elections. We want no more wars. Enough of wars. We're scared of wars. We're scared. Palestine in 1948, then the North, then the war in Iran, then the war in Kuwait, and then the second war in Kuwait. Iraq ends one war and starts another. Why? If I were in the government, I'd forbid even weapons. I'd declare us a peaceful state where weapons are forbidden. We want no more wars.
Since the war with Iran in the early 1980s, Iraq has known one conflict after another. Despite the present retreat of Daesh, can this country survive? Will the Sunnis, Shiites, and Kurds find common ground on which to rebuild the country and restore peace? Will they manage to reach an agreement on the hydrocarbon operations, the source of all the wealth, but also of all the suffering of this country that used to be known as Mesopotamia?
موطني موطني الجلال والجمال والسناء والبهاء في رباك في رباك والحياة والنجاة والهناء والرجاء في هواك في هواك هل أراك سالما منعما وغانما مكرما هل أراك تبلغ السماك موطني موطني الشباب لم يكن لهمه أن تستقل أو يبيد نستقي من الردى ولن نكون للعدا كالعبيد لا نريد ذلنا المؤبد وعيشنا المنكد لا نريد بل نعيد مجدنا التليد موطني